The inheritance of stars. Marcus Chen had always believed that space was cold, empty, and thoroughly indifferent to human problems. Standing in the cargo hold of his salvage ship, watching Earth shrink to a pale blue dot through the viewport, he was beginning to think he'd been optimistic. Space wasn't just indifferent, it was actively trying to ruin his life. 3 days ago, he'd been a simple salvage operator, pulling scrap metal and abandoned tech from the debris fields around Luna. His biggest worry had been whether the coffee maker in his one-room habitat would last another month. Then the lawyers had found him. Apparently, his great-uncle, Dmitri, a man Marcus had met exactly once at a funeral when he was 7, had been living on some alien space station for the past 30 years. Not only that, but he'd died and left Marcus everything in his will. Everything included a workshop, living quarters, a substantial credit account, and something the lawyers had described as cultural obligations that transfer with the inheritance. Marcus had assumed that meant he'd have to learn some alien customs or attend a few ceremonies. He'd been spectacularly wrong. The Nexus station was a marvel of engineering that made Earth's best space habitats look like tin cans. Crystalline spires twisted around a central hub, with docking bays that could accommodate everything from tiny shuttles to massive cargo haulers. As Marcus's transport approached, he pressed his face to the viewport like a tourist trying to take it all in. "First time to Nexus?" asked Captain Reeves, the transport pilot who'd agreed to ferry him out here for a reasonable fee. "First time. Anywhere, really," Marcus admitted. "I've never been further than Luna." Reeves chuckled. "Well, you picked quite a place to start. Nexus is neutral territory. Dozens of species trade here. Just remember, what passes for normal on Earth might get you killed out here. Mind your manners and don't stare at anyone with more than 4 arms." The docking procedure was surprisingly smooth, and soon Marcus found himself standing in an airlock with his single duffel bag, waiting for the cycle to complete. When it did, he stepped into a world that defied every expectation he'd had about alien architecture. The corridors were wide and high-ceilinged, lit by strips of bioluminescent material that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. The walls were some kind of living coral, he realized, breathing slowly and maintaining perfect atmospheric conditions. Beings of a dozen different species moved through the halls, some walking, some floating, some moving in ways that had no human equivalent. A holographic display materialized in front of him, startling him badly. The projection showed a figure in formal robes, clearly human but wearing clothes Marcus had never seen before. "Greetings, Marcus Chen," the hologram said in accented English. "I am Advocate Villione, executor of Dmitri Chen's estate. Please follow." The blue guide lights to conference room 7. "We have much to discuss." The blue lights led him through a maze of corridors to a room that looked more like a courtroom than anything else. Advocate Valion was waiting for him, no longer a hologram, but a real person, tall, thin, with graying hair and the kind of formal bearing that suggested he'd been dealing with legal matters for longer than Marcus had been alive. "Please, sit," Velione said, gesturing to a chair that molded itself to Marcus's body as he settled into it. "I'm afraid this situation is rather complex. Your great-uncle lived here for 30 years, under what we call a cultural integration treaty. It allowed him to establish a business and residence, but it also bound him to certain obligations." "What kind of obligations?" Marcus asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know. "Marriage obligations," Velione said bluntly. Dmitri was bonded to a Vectari female as part of a diplomatic arrangement between Earth and the Vectari Collective. When he died, those obligations transferred to his closest male relative. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Are you telling me I'm married to an alien? Not exactly married, no. The Vectari term translates more closely to life-bonded. It's a deeper connection than human marriage, with both spiritual and biological components. The bond cannot be broken except through death or a complex ritual that both parties must agree to. And this alien does she want to be bonded to me? Velion's expression became carefully neutral. Zara Kethva was not enthusiastic about the arrangement with your great uncle. She has been even less enthusiastic about the inheritance transfer. A door Marcus hadn't noticed opened, and she walked in. Marcus had seen pictures of various alien species during his transit here, but nothing had prepared him for Zara Kethva. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her body a study in controlled power. Her skin was a deep bronze that seemed to shift color in the light, and intricate tattoos spiraled up her arms in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Her hair was white as starlight, braided with what looked like small bones or carved stones. But it was her eyes that stopped him, cold golden, predatory, and currently filled with barely contained rage. This is the whelp, she said, her voice carrying an accent that made every word sound like a blade being sharpened. He looks like he would break if I breathed on him too hard. Marcus stood up, trying to ignore how she towered over him. Nice to meet you too. I'm Marcus. I did not ask for your name, human. She turned to Velion. How long must I endure this mockery? The bonding ceremony must be completed within 24 hours, Velion said carefully. After that, the standard waiting period applies. What waiting period? Marcus asked. Zara's laugh was like breaking glass. 1 full cycle of our homeworld's orbit. Roughly 2 of your Earth years. Then we can petition for dissolution if we both agree, and if the biological bond hasn't become permanent. Biological bond. The Vectari bonding process creates neurochemical links between partners, Velion explained. Over time, these can become permanent. If dissolution is attempted after the bond has stabilized, both parties die. Marcus sank back into his chair. So I'm potentially married to someone who hates me, and if we try to divorce, we might both die. That is an accurate, if crude, summary, yes. Zara had been pacing during this exchange, her movements reminding Marcus of a caged predator. I'm Zara Kethva, 3rd Blade of the Crimson Fleet, destroyer of the Hegemony's 7th Battle Group. I do not bond with soft creatures who smell of engine oil and fear. I don't smell of fear, Marcus said, stung. And the engine oil is from honest work. She whirled on him. Honest work. You scavenge debris like a bottom feeder. You have never fought for your life, never commanded others in battle, never made decisions that determined who lived and who died. You are a child playing with scrap metal. Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. Maybe I am, but I'm the child you're stuck with, so we might as well figure out how to make this work. Something flickered in Zara's expression, surprise, maybe, or grudging recognition. You have courage, at least. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. Velion cleared his throat. If we could proceed with the ceremony. The Council of Species has already been notified of the inheritance transfer. Failing to complete the bonding would be seen as a breach of treaty. The ceremony was brief and uncomfortable. It took place in a small chamber filled with bioluminescent plants that responded to emotion, glowing brighter as both Marcus and Zara's stress levels rose. They had to place their hands on a crystalline artifact that felt uncomfortably warm and pulse with energy that made Marcus's teeth ache. "The bond is established," the officiating alien announced in heavily accented standard. "May your union bring strength to both peoples." Marcus felt something shift inside his head, like a door opening in a room he hadn't known existed. For just a moment, he could sense Zara's emotions, anger, frustration, and underneath it all, fear. Then the sensation faded, leaving only a faint awareness of her presence. Zara yanked her hand away from the crystal as if it had burned her. "It is done. Where are my quarters?" "Your quarters are adjacent to Marcus's," Velian said. "As bonded partners, you're required to maintain physical proximity for the first 30 days while the initial bond stabilizes. If looks could kill Velion, would have been atomized. How adjacent, sharing a common living area, separate sleeping chambers." Marcus rubbed his temples where a headache was starting to form. "Look, I know this isn't what either of us wanted, but we're stuck with each other for the next 2 years. Can we at least try to be civil?" Zara studied him with those predatory golden eyes. "Civil," she repeated, as if the word tasted bad. "Very well, human. I will be civil, but do not mistake civility for acceptance. The moment we can dissolve this mockery of a bond, I will be gone." "Fair enough," Marcus said. "But until then, we're partners. That has to mean something." "Partners," she said slowly. "You truly believe that?" "I have to. The alternative is 2 years of misery for both of us." For the first time since he'd met her, Zara didn't immediately respond with anger. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, studying him like he was a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. "We shall see, Marcus Chen," she said finally. "We shall see." Their quarters were larger than Marcus's entire habitat back on Earth, with a central living area that opened onto a balcony overlooking one of Nexus Station's main thoroughfares. The furniture was clearly designed for beings of various sizes and shapes, adjusting automatically as different people used it. Marcus set his duffel bag down and looked around, trying to process the fact that this was apparently his life now. Zara stalked through the space like she was mapping potential escape routes. "These accommodations are acceptable," she announced. "I will take the chamber on the east side." "Sure," Marcus said. "I don't suppose you'd be willing to tell me what I should expect from this bonding thing." Velion mentioned biological effects, but he wasn't specific. She paused in her inspection. "You will become aware of my general emotional state and physical condition. I will become aware of yours. The effect is strongest when we are in close proximity and fades with distance. Over time, the connection may deepen, and if it deepens too much, then we become dependent on each other for survival. Our nervous systems interlink. Separation becomes impossible." Her tone made it clear what she thought of that possibility. Marcus nodded slowly. "Okay, so we have 2 years to figure out if we can stand each other, and if we can't, we need to break the bond before it becomes permanent. That's manageable, is it?" Zara turned to face him fully. "You speak of this as if it is a business arrangement. Among my people, bonding is sacred. It is not entered into lightly, and it is never broken except in the most extreme circumstances. But you want to break it." "I want my freedom," she said fiercely. "I am a warrior, not a pet to be passed from one human to another like property." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "Is that what you think this is? That I see you as property? Do you not? You inherited me along with furniture and credits. Marcus ran his hands through his hair, trying to find the right words. Look, I don't know much about alien cultures or sacred bonds or any of this, but I know that no one should be treated like property. If you want to break the bond in 2 years, I'll support that decision. In the meantime, I'd like to try to be friends. Friends. She said the word like it was foreign to her. People who care about each other's well-being, who support each other, who choose to spend time together because they enjoy it, not because they're forced to. Zara was quiet for a long moment, those golden eyes studying his face. Your species is strange, she said finally, but perhaps, ... perhaps we can try this friendship. Marcus smiled, the first genuine smile he'd managed since leaving Earth. I'd like that. What he didn't mention was the faint warmth he'd felt through their bond when she'd agreed on it, just his own relief, but hers as well. Whatever Zara Kethfa was afraid of, it wasn't just being trapped with him. There was something deeper there, something that made the fierce warrior's hands shake almost imperceptibly when she thought he wasn't looking, but they had 2 years to figure it out. Marcus had always been good at solving problems, and this was just another puzzle to work through, albeit one with golden eyes and the temperament of an armed fusion reactor. As he settled into his new quarters, watching alien ships drift past the balcony windows, Marcus reflected that his life had certainly become more interesting. Whether that was a good thing remained to be seen. Hearts in conflict living with Zara Kethfa was like sharing space with a barely contained storm. Marcus learned this on his second day when he made the mistake of using the food preparation area while she was conducting what she called morning meditation, which apparently involved wielding 2 curved blades in patterns so complex and fast that they created their own wind currents. The crash when he dropped a metal serving tray was spectacular. Zara spun toward the sound, both blades at his throat before the tray had finished bouncing. Sorry, Marcus said, very carefully, not moving. I was just trying to make coffee. She stared at him for several heartbeats, her golden eyes wide with something that looked almost like panic. Then she seemed to remember where she was, lowering the blades with movements that were too controlled to be natural. Do not interrupt my meditation again, she said, her voice carefully level. Noted. Marcus waited until she'd sheathed the weapons, before asking, Are you okay? You seemed ... startled. I do not startle. But she wouldn't meet his eyes, and through their bond, Marcus caught an echo of something that felt like shame. The days that followed established a careful routine. Zara woke before dawn and spent 2 hours in what Marcus came to think of as aggressive meditation. She would then consume a breakfast that consisted entirely of things that would probably kill him. Review what appeared to be military dispatches on a holographic display, and spend the afternoon either training in the station's combat facilities or maintaining her equipment with an attention to detail that bordered on obsessive. Marcus, meanwhile, was trying to figure out what his great-uncle had actually done for a living. The workshop Dmitri had left him was filled with equipment, mostly recognized but arranged in ways that made no sense. There were quantum processors next to what looked like ancient earth hammers, molecular assemblers sharing space with hand tools that might have been artifacts from a dozen different worlds. It was while he was puzzling over a device that appeared to be part scanner, part 3D printer, and part coffee machine that Zara finally broke their unspoken rule about not talking during work hours. Your predecessor was an idiot, she announced from the doorway. Marcus looked up from the manual he'd been trying to translate. It was written in what appeared to be 3 different languages, none of which were standard. That's not very nice to say about the dead. The dead do not care about nice. She stepped into the workshop, moving with the careful precision she always used in enclosed spaces. Dmitri Chen thought he could understand Vektari technology through human engineering principles. He was wrong, and you know this how? Because I helped him build half of this. She gestured at the chaotic arrangement of equipment. He would take perfectly functional Vektari designs and improve them with human modifications. The results were unpredictable. Marcus set down the manual. You helped him. I was bound to him. I had little choice but to make his work functional enough to prevent him from accidentally vaporizing the station. She picked up one of the hybrid devices, examining it with what might have been professional interest. This was supposed to be a quantum flux analyzer. He added human computational cores to increase processing speed. Did it work? It worked. It also occasionally achieved sentience and had to be talked out of taking over the station's computer systems. She set the device down carefully. Your species has a talent for taking perfectly safe technology and making it dangerous. We also take dangerous technology and make it useful. That's got to count for something. For the first time since he'd met her, Zara almost smiled. This is true. Humans are creative in ways that other species find disturbing. Is that why the Vektari wanted a treaty with Earth? The almost smile vanished. The treaty was not the Vektari idea. Marcus waited, but she didn't elaborate. Instead, she began moving through the workshop, pointing out various devices and explaining their original functions before Dimitri's modifications. Her knowledge was encyclopedic, and Marcus found himself taking notes as she spoke. You're incredibly smart, he said during a pause in her explanation of something that might have been a faster-than-light communication array. How did you end up bonded to a human instead of doing ... Whatever it is you'd rather be doing. Zara went very still. That is not a question you should ask. Why not? We're going to be stuck together for 2 years. Shouldn't we know something about each other? Knowing leads to attachment. Attachment leads to pain when the bond is dissolved. There was something in her voice when she said that, something that made Marcus's chest tighten in sympathy. Not all attachment leads to pain. It does for me. Before Marcus could ask what she meant, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed everything in red, and a voice began speaking in multiple languages over the communication system. Hull breach in Section C, Zara translated, her entire demeanor shifting from guarded to alert. Major structural damage. All emergency personnel to response stations. Should we? Marcus began, but Zara was already moving. The breach is near the primary life support recycling center, she said, pulling on an emergency suit that had materialized from what Marcus had thought was a storage panel. If it fails, atmospheric integrity for the entire station will be compromised. Marcus grabbed his own emergency suit, struggling with the alien fastenings. I'm coming with you. You are not trained for emergency response, but I am trained in mechanical systems. And you said it yourself, humans are good at making dangerous things useful. Zara paused in her equipment check. Through their bond, Marcus felt her weighing options with the speed of someone accustomed to making life or death decisions. Stay behind me, she said finally. Do exactly what I tell you when I tell you. If I say run, you run. Understood, understood. Section C was chaos. The hull breach had been caused by a collision with debris something large, enough to punch through the station's outer shielding and tear a hole in the primary corridor. Emergency force fields were holding atmosphere but barely, and the structural damage was worse than the initial reports had suggested. Zara moved through the disaster zone like she belonged there, checking on trapped civilians and coordinating with other emergency responders. Marcus stayed close, trying to be useful without getting in the way. It was when they reached the life support center that Marcus saw the real problem. The breach didn't just damage the hull, he said, studying the twisted wreckage of what had been a main processing unit. Look at the power coupling they're on, the way the support struts are bent. The whole assembly is going to collapse. Zara followed his gaze. How long? Hard to say. Could be minutes, could be hours. But when it goes, it'll take out the backup systems too. Can it be repaired? Marcus was already pulling tools from his emergency kit, his mind working through the problem. Not repaired, no, but maybe bypassed. If I can reroute the power coupling through the secondary manifold and reinforce the support structure with portable field generators, ... That is not standard procedure. No, but it might work. He looked at her seriously. I'll need someone to monitor the structural integrity while I work. Someone who can react fast if things start to collapse. Zara nodded slowly. What do you need me to do? What followed was the most intense hour of Marcus's life. Working in a damaged system while atmosphere leaked around them and structural supports groaned ominously was nothing like the quiet precision of salvage work. Everything was urgent, dangerous, and one mistake away from catastrophic failure, but Zara was incredible to work with. She anticipated what he needed before he asked for it, held equipment steady while he worked, and twice pulled him out of the way when her superior reflexes detected structural failures before he did. More than that, she trusted his judgment completely, following his instructions without question, even when they must have seemed insane to someone with her background. When the bypass finally engaged and the life support systems stabilized, Marcus slumped against the nearest wall, exhausted. Zara knelt beside him, her golden eyes bright with something that might have been respect. That was well done, she said quietly. We did it together. Marcus managed a tired smile. I couldn't have managed the timing without you. The solution was yours. I merely ... assisted. You did more than assist. You trusted me. He met her eyes. That means something. Zara was quiet for a long moment. Around them, other emergency workers were arriving to make permanent repairs, but she didn't seem to notice. I was bonded before, she said suddenly, to a Vectari male named Catherine. We were young, and the bond formed naturally, as it should. We were ... happy. Marcus waited, sensing there was more. He died in battle. A stupid, pointless skirmish. Over mineral rights in an asteroid field. When the bond broke ... she touched her chest, over her heart. I nearly died as well. The trauma of a severed bond is difficult to survive. I'm sorry. After I recovered, I swore I would never allow myself to become dependent on another person again. When the treaty required a bonding arrangement, I agreed because I knew it would be temporary. A human bonding is not the same as a Vectari one. Shallower, easier to break. And now, she looked at him with those incredible golden eyes. Now I find myself working in harmony with a human male who thinks he can solve any problem with ingenuity and determination. It is ... disturbing. Marcus felt warmth through their bond, not his own emotions, but hers. Affection, carefully controlled, but definitely there. Would it help if I promised to be really annoying for the next year and a half? He asked. I could leave dirty dishes around, play my music too loud, tell bad jokes ... Despite herself, Zara laughed. It was a rich, warm sound that made something inside Marcus's chest light up. "You are already annoying," she said, "but you are also not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone like Dmitri, arrogant, certain of his own superiority, determined to change me into something more acceptable to human sensibilities. And instead, you got someone who's making it up as he goes along and thinks you're pretty amazing as you are." She went very still. "You think I am amazing? Are you kidding? You're brilliant. You're incredibly skilled. You just helped save an entire space station, and you look like you could bench press a shuttle. Of course, I think you're amazing." Color rose in her bronze cheeks. "You should not say such things." "Why not?" "Because it makes the bond stronger. Because it makes me want ... She stopped, looking away. "Want what?" "Want to trust you. Want to believe that this could be something other than a temporary inconvenience." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Want to stop being afraid that caring about you will destroy me when you leave." Marcus reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. Her skin was warm, and he could feel the faint tremor that ran through her. "What if I don't leave?" he said quietly. "You will. Humans always do. They find what they want from other species and then move on. Some humans, maybe, but not me. I've never had anyone look at me the way you do when you think I'm not paying attention. I've never worked with anyone who understood what I was trying to do before I understood it myself. I've never met anyone who made me want to be better than I am." Zara's hand tightened on his. "The bond influences emotions. What you feel may not be real. Maybe, but what I felt when we worked together today, that was real. The way you trusted me, the way we moved together like we'd been partners for years. Instead of days, that was real too." She was quiet for a long time, her thumb tracing patterns on the back of his hand. 2 years, she said finally. 2 years, Marcus agreed, and then we decide. Not because of treaty obligations or biological bonds, but because we choose to. Whatever that choice is, and if the bond has become permanent by then. Marcus smiled. "Then I guess we'll figure out how to make it work. I'm pretty good at solving problems, remember." For the first time since he'd met her, Zara smiled back, a real smile that lit up her entire face and sent warmth flooding through their connection. "Yes," she said. "I remember." As they made their way back to their quarters, Marcus reflected that he was starting to understand why his great-uncle had stayed on Nexus Station for 30 years. Some problems were worth the time it took to solve them properly, and some solutions were worth waiting for.